Ellis. Let's kind of talk about getting back to practice with your guys and I guess the retention and everything. How's everything been so far?
It's been pretty good. We didn't get into a lot in spring, but what we did get into, they retained it pretty well. We had the volunteer workouts over the summer, and we're hoping that would really help our young players. I thought that was kind of a B-, C+. It's very hard for them to pick things up without coaches. But they at least were not totally blind when they came in. But the older guys, I thought, really good retention.
Is that kind of allowing you to put in some more of your sub packages and stuff that you didn't get a chance to put in the fall?
We actually did that today. It was very rough around the edges, but put in what we call dime, extra cover guy, and tried to get a lot of reps on that, and have some good film to teach off of now. But we did not get too much of that in the spring, so that was very important. We have probably overloaded the kids at this point, but it's just no way around it. A lot of times defensively you can't hit without pads. The one thing you like to do is really put your focus on install. Then you get pads in, you go back on fundamentals and those type of things. So we'll slow down a little bit now with that part on mental overload, and hopefully the kids will start to polish things up.
What are you seeing at linebacker right now? I know obviously it's pretty wide open going into the fall, but what have you seen in the first 4 days?
Older guys, came back, I think at least as well prepared, if not better. A couple of them lost some weight, which we felt like would help them, and it did. I think that from the standpoint of mental assignments, they've been really good. The physicality of it, we don't know. We've been running around with shorts, so we really don't know. We'll start to find out more in the next few days. Depth chart wise, I feel like there's a few guys that have an edge on other guys, but it's certainly too early, to say that a player has not played himself into contention or doesn't have a chance. I mean, we haven't done enough at this point for me to tell you whether a guy can play linebacker or not. I know which ones can run around and pass scale, and I know which ones can, do drills and things, but until we actually put them in good live situations, sometimes a player that doesn't look real cute in the drill, he's just a good natural player. Sometimes a player who can do all the right things, when you walk through the barrels and go out and run it 5 minutes later, he's good, but then you run it 5 days later and you can't remember. So we just have to see who surfaces. I think Chris Frost is having a good camp so far. McKenzie's having a much better camp than he did spring, which is a plus. Anthony Swain's improved. Swain's moved into the Mike linebacker, and Ladarius Owens moved out to the Will linebacker. That took them a couple of days. They were a little bit out of sorts, but they've started to pick things up. But I can't give you a depth chart right now because it's going to have to clear up over the next 4 or 5 days, if not a little bit longer.
At the end of spring, you said that Chris Frost needed to do a better job with making calls at the Mike spot. Has he done that after the summer and studying?
It's improved, but it's still got to continue to improve.
What's Casanova McKenzie doing? What's Casanova McKenzie doing better than he was in the spring?
He lost some weight, and his we call it COD. His change of direction, redirecting on counters and coming out of your break when you drop in zone and those type of things. Just acceleration, explosion to the point of attack. He's a lot better, and he can practice longer at a high tempo. He would not finish a practice, and I felt like he was too heavy and out of shape. And he did a good job of dropping some pounds, and I think it really shows.
Ellis, is Jake the only one that's working both positions?
With the ones, and I've got Ladarius Owens is flipping around a little bit at Mike and Will. He's mainly stayed at the Will because he already knew the Mike. And I may change a couple of them in a few days and make sure they're able to go either way.
But Jake's the only one that's doing this alternate the first team.
It's an orange group right now.
Ellis, you spoke a little bit in the spring about the dime and the concept of putting 2 stars out there as opposed to an additional corner. Just what is the kind of the thinking and philosophy behind of having that additional star in Therese as opposed to having either, what was Halsey or Jonathan Jones or somebody in that spot?
Well, you could use anybody who can learn it. The thing about it is a star is an outside linebacker, and so is a Will. And so there's a lot more carryover to what the star does every day fundamentally in his zone drops. He can take it to the other side of the ball, and it almost is a mirror, if you will, in zone coverage techniques. And then you got a faster guy who skill-wise can match up on a decent wide receiver. Right now, we're thin at safety, and we can't afford for Halsey to have to learn 3 positions. Right now, he's learning 2. That may be something that happens in the future. You can find a guy if he's a real football smart, great football intelligence. I've had guys be the extra backer that played corner as a starter. Guys that played the free safety drop down there and be the nickel, bring in a new free safety. My experience with it, anytime you take one that plays outside and put him inside, he struggles in zone coverages. Anytime you take one that plays deep and put him down, he's not always a great blitzer. He's not always a great guy that they make play the draw and the lead draw and get in the box, those type things. Doesn't always mean it's true. But we think that the reason in Garrett about, I don't know how many more talented kids we've got on the football team physically, and they're learning a position that has a lot of transition advantages to play star and dime.
Coach D. Ford said that you guys did a great job of trying to simplify the game for them. Is there anything you guys are trying to do in particular in the first few days of camp to simplify it so they can just react?
Well, we like to feel like our scheme is relatively simple compared to others. And nothing in college football is extremely simple anymore because offenses are so complex and varied. And it's just, you see so many different varieties of offense. You have to have a flexible defense. What we think makes it a little bit more simple, especially for a kid that plays in his area, is we don't teach them drop and rush, and we don't teach them a lot of different things. We teach them how to be a good defensive end, and then we'll drop them in the short side of the field a little bit. But they can focus on a lesser number of techniques, assignments, and fundamentals, and still we have a full package of things that we can get an odd front and still mix in some little blitzes and gimmick stuff and things by changing up our fronts. But I'm glad to know they think that it's simpler. There's no way for me to know that it was simpler. I've always felt like it was relatively a simple scheme to learn to play, and we've had a lot of young players make freshmen all SEC and play a lot as freshmen. And of course that kind of tells me that you can find a place to play. If you can learn our defense, it's not that hard to learn.
Is there a big difference between a nickelback and then what you ask the star to do?
No.
Just having a different body?
It's not an assignment at all, but we ask them to do a lot more from the standpoint of staying there on first down when people are running the football. So it's nickel defense on the blackboard in many ways, and probably about 40% of the scheme comes from nickel defense. 40% of it comes from the old wide tackle six that I've learned playing for Coach Frank Beamer, and then another little bit of it, things we've stolen from other guys, just ideas you pick up along the way. So it's not much different from an alignment assignment standpoint, but we can't put a nickel cover guy out there and be an every down player. He can't hold up against the run.
D4 talked a little bit about the Carl Lawson, Elijah, and Adams having violent hands. That's why he thinks they'll play. Also on the pads. What have you seen early from them?
Have not seen them, though. We will go up and watch film. But if I understand what he's trying, you can see their upper body strength and their quick twitch. And a lot of young players, they don't have that ability. They're just physically not as strong as they're going to be one day. And some of them just don't have that natural first step and that quick twitch to explode out of their stance. And, those two guys I think they're going to be really good players. I don't know if it's going to be tomorrow, or next week, or next month, or next year. I don't want to go on a limb and put any pressure on any freshman. But they've shown some really impressive things so far. We'll just have to see if, they end up being ready to go sooner rather than later, we hope. But if they're not ready, they're not ready.
Speaking of that, you mentioned that this summer that pass rush was a big concern of yours. How do you feel about it now? What have you seen?
I think the previous question answers that. We're going to have to find some guys who can bring that to the table. I think our older guys have improved, but I think those two young guys bring some natural abilities that can make them better. But I don't know if they're ready. There's an element other than physical skill to being an SEC football player on the game field, and we'll have to see if they're ready to take that role.
Let's get a status update on Demetruce McNeal.
He has had an infection and a minor surgical procedure, so it's just day to day. I don't want to say anything more than that because I don't know. We've been told we won't have him for several days.
What have you seen out of the guys who've been in there since he's been out?
Been good. We're double teaching Halsey, and we got him in there in the spring, and he's doing fine. He's doing a good job at safety, not getting hardly any reps at corner, if any. But he's good. And I think Jonathan Halsey is probably one of our sharper, smarter players and physical guy. And we'd be fine if he had to play. Depth is an issue, and we certainly want to get Demetruce back as soon as we can.